Welcome to the commentary booth, where we watch and you guessed it, commentate on the week that was in movies and TV. I'm your host and play-by-play commentator Jamie Apps, and each week I'm joined by a rotating cast of colour commentators to help you find your next viewing treat. This week I'm joined by a project manager who lists their favourite movie as The Lord of the Rings: The Two Towers and favourite TV show as Sons of Anarchy. Welcome back to the show, Ben Davis.
Cheers, Apsy. Should be fun.
Yep, so today we're getting into the spirit of the Tour de France, which, when this episode airs, will have just started, by reviewing the Netflix documentary series Tour de France Unchained. This is a Netflix documentary series produced by the same team that made Formula One Drive to Survive, and follows a very similar structure where we spend a bit of time with individual teams, individual riders, and then also, whilst doing that, we kind of get the overarching story of the full tour itself. What did you think of this one before we sort of break it down?
I think you can definitely tell it's the same team as the Formula One team.
Mm.
It's really good. Like it does everything well without bogging down in details. You end up learning everything you need to know without it being smacked over the head like other documentaries.
Like the last time we spoke, where they told us the same 15 things about tennis and golf.
Correct. Correct.
Yeah, I think, this one they really don't sort of come back to the same point over and over again. It's kind of like, it's a team sport. This is what this jersey means. I don't think they only break down the yellow and green jersey, don't they? I don't think they broke down
Yeah,
like
they don't.
into the polka dot and into the white jersey and like the red numbers and all that
No.
sort of stuff. They just give you the top level stuff that a
Yeah,
casual
which
viewer would need and know.
yeah, that's fine. Like who outside of the cycling fraternity knows that there's a polka dot jersey?
Yeah, yeah. If you're not watching the tour every year, you're going to see that polka dot jersey and just be like, okay.
Like, I watch the tour almost every year, and I only just found out maybe a couple of years ago there was a white jersey. Like, I didn't even realize that there was an under 25s.
I
Yeah,
imagine you found out about that because of Tadej Pogacar when he was essentially wearing
correct.
both the yellow and the
Yeah,
white jersey.
yep.
What a freak of a human being that guy is.
Uh, I've known about him for about 4 years and just been like following his Instagram and stuff. He is a psycho. He is
Yeah.
just crazy, mental. Like, oh,
And you mentioned you watch the tour every year. How long have you been watching it? And sort of, does this show make you want to go back and watch this upcoming race as well?
yeah, I've been watching it for probably my whole life. Like, my dad watched it every year when we were growing up, so it was just sort of a as I was growing up, it was always on when it was on. It was always the tour was on. So
Hmm.
let's watch the tour, and then the next day you'd watch the highlights and that sort of stuff. Sort of stopped watching it when I went to uni, and but still kept in touch with oh yeah who's riding and who's doing that. And in the last sort of 5 years or so since I've been back in Oz, again I probably don't sit down and watch it every night, but I'll check the results and I'll watch the highlights where possible and sort of keep a finger on it. Started getting into it a little bit more, and yeah,
Yeah, I think the time definitely makes it difficult here in Australia. With it's usually starting at 9, 10 o'clock at night, and then
yeah.
running to the early hours of the morning. So what I've been like, I used to sit up and watch those super late nights
Oh, I
every
know.
night for a month, which was
Yeah,
not the greatest health wise, but
yeah.
enjoyable. But
Sucks.
now I've kind of got into, especially with SBS on demand, like you just wake up in the morning and you can just chuck on
Yeah,
the highlights from the night before. You don't have to kind of be beholden to a TV schedule of, oh, okay, I've got to be up at 7 to watch the highlights from the night before.
yeah. It makes it a lot easier. And to be honest, the getting up at 9, 10 o'clock to watch it, it's a 4 hour race, and a lot of it is just watching a peloton ride through a field.
Mhm.
Like, there is a lot of tactics and all that I know about, but let's be honest, it's just a peloton riding through a field for an hour and a half to 2 hours, and then you get someone attacking on a hill or doing a crazy downhill, and it starts to get interesting. But yeah, I
Yeah,
don't
I
need to
find
watch that.
now I will pick and choose which stages I'm going to wake up for and watch those.
Yeah,
Watch those key mountain stages live right through, but then the rest,
the time trials are always good to watch, and yeah,
yeah, and then the rest you can just you don't need to see it
yeah,
most of it except for the final couple of kilometers,
yeah.
20, 30 kilometers is about the main part. And I found when I was watching every stage live for a while there, it was less so about watching for watching the race sake. It was kind of to get all those aerial shots and like it's basically a giant advertisement and postcard for French tourism.
Yeah, and I think you've just hit on it there, and I'll just mention it now, but I think that's part of the reason that it works, and the same reason that Formula One works, is that they're in exotic locations, and they're in like watching those shots on the mountain. It's a cool
Oh,
shot. Like, yeah, there's a bike race going on, but it's nice. It's awesome to look at, and it's really good to look at. Whereas like Formula One's really good to look at because it's cars going a million miles an hour in Monte Carlo. Like
mhm.
it's really, or yeah, or a million miles an hour in Las Vegas. Like it's really cool to look at. Whereas the tennis one, yeah, it had some cool locations, and I really liked the tennis one. It was done really well. But then the golf one, it's just a flat field,
Yeah, it's
and
just a bunch of
that
golf
pains,
courses.
yeah, that pains me to say it, but it doesn't have the same impact. Like it's a guy swinging a club. It's not a guy on a bicycle doing 100 k's down a hill with a 400-meter drop off to the left. Like,
Mm.
or it's not a car going 600 kilometers an hour down a straight sort of thing. Like, it just doesn't have that. And this is what I think works in this Tour de France one is that it has that. Oh, there's an actual like consequence to screwing this up. Like these guys really are pushing it to the limit. Like that episode where when they followed the English guy, I've forgotten his name, and he's doing like he made like 2 or 3 minutes up downhill, like, which is
Oh
just
yeah,
unheard
yeah,
of.
the young bloke.
Yeah, that's he was flying down those hills and with a yeah like a rock wall on one side and a I don't know an endless cliff on the other, and he's just fanging it down there.
Yeah, and I think the show does a great job of sort of capturing that visual aesthetic of what watching the tour is like. We get a lot of those cool helicopter shots over the mountains and stuff like that, and the fields. But you also mentioned it really does capture the danger. Like immediately,
Mm,
the first episode they focus on Jakobsen, who's coming back
yeah.
from a absolutely
Oh,
devastating crash.
that was brutal. That crash was mental into the barriers and like what a punctured lung and
Yeah,
fractures
so
to his face. And,
he we the first time we see him, he's recovered, but he's still covered in scars, and he's got the intubation tube in his neck was like the most
yeah,
noticeable and shocking. But they mentioned in that crash where he got pushed into the barriers, he lost 10 teeth, got 130 stitches, fractured his skull, and was pretty much on the verge of
it's
dying.
just yeah. That's and they go back to it through the series, and you're just like, oh wow, these like I think that's what draws you in is that they're playing for keeps. They're not like if they screw up, they're going to get hurt. Whereas other sports that maybe didn't have the same impact in this documentary, there's no physical consequence, and
Mhm.
it's hard to get people to buy into it when there's no, yeah, cool, he's really good. He can hit a shot from one side of the court to the other and hit a line, or he can hit a 150-meter golf shot to within 3 feet. That what's the danger for that? Whereas the two that really work, the Formula One and this one, yeah, the danger is you could die.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, like the consequence for not competing at the highest level in golf and tennis is you just don't make as much money.
yeah, pretty much.
Whereas this one and the Formula One, like if you get to this highest level and you're slightly off your game, you could die. This is
Mm,
serious business, and
yeah,
every day is treated that way with the sprint races. It's all or nothing. Let's if we win, we win. If
Oh,
not, we've achieved nothing, and we could possibly face serious consequences.
and I think they did really well. Those mid-table teams that just have a sprinter and they're just going for sprint stages. They did really well of going, okay, these are the 6 stages we can win. We need to do everything we can to win one of these 6 stages. If we
Mm.
don't, we're gone. Like our sponsors are gone. We won't be in the tour next year. Like this is it. And it showed like how they position the domestiques and their other guys, and then their sprinter just launches, and it's from there it's just straight up hell on, fast as you can get, and it's just a war, like people banging into others and like hitting the handlebars and whatever else, and yeah, they did really well.
And like while doing that, they also did a great job of sort of explaining the consequences for those teams on those mountain stages as well. Like I think that's one thing
Yeah,
a lot of people don't realize with the mountain stages that it's not just if I'm not gonna win, I'll just take my time and
yeah,
cruise through.
you
Like
can't.
you have a minimum time that you have to hit.
Yeah, what was it, 37 minutes or whatever, and you made it by like 16 seconds or something.
Yeah, it ends up being like it's a different time window every stage because they base it on like
Yeah,
a percentage of the winning time, and depending on how hard the stage is, the
yeah,
bigger
yeah.
that percentage is. But yeah, to see this guy like just
Oh,
punishing himself just to scrape in that elimination window is just nuts.
well, the one that got me with that is that the guys that they just showed it for a second, but they were doing the thing you do when it's a really steep hill and they were going
Oh,
across the hill.
zigzagging,
And
like
I was like,
doubling the
these guys,
distance they have to go just so it's not quite as steep.
yeah, I was like, these guys are professional athletes, professional cyclists, and it's so steep that they have to zigzag. I was like, wow,
Yeah,
that's a really cool shot of showing how bloody hard this stage really is.
yeah, because you watch those like Pogachars and the guys at the front just cruising up like it's nothing, and then they'll
Oh yeah,
like. I saw one year a couple of guys like did a track stand halfway up the hill, like they just stood there and balanced. I was like, "Are you nuts?" And then
it's
this
just yeah,
guy's like, "I'm just struggling to even
yeah,
get up. Like I want to get up and walk, but I'm not allowed."
yeah. If I could do that, I would be. Yeah, yeah. You're right. You watch Pogačar and Vingegaard. Is it Vingegaard? Yeah. Um,
Yep,
and they just
and
they go up
Roglic.
it like it's and Roglic and the French guy that have Gadu,
Yep,
and they just it's like it's well, it's like I was going to say it's flat, but not quite like that. But it's just like it's a normal hill, and so you're like, oh yeah, I could do that. And then you watch the rest of the peloton come up, and you're like, oh, hang on.
oh maybe not, maybe no.
And then you yeah, and then you watch the sprinters come up, and you're like, oh, it's really steep.
I'd be one of those guys. And then you get like the aerial shot of like this crazy
Oh,
zigzagging road that's like essentially up a vertical cliff. And you're like, what? Why are we doing this to
yeah.
ourselves?
Like I've driven some of those roads to get to the ski fields, and I remember driving one of them going, pretty sure this is like a road that they do in Tour de France. And I was like, the bus is struggling to get up this.
The bus is foot to the floor and we're crawling.
So yeah, it's just that's what just makes the tour so makes it so much different to the Giro d'Italia. Like it's just got that I don't know that the difficulty and the intense. Like it's yeah, it's crazy. And then they throw in the cobbles, and then they throw in the Champs Elysees and like the Arc de Triomphe, and it's awesome. Yeah,
Yeah, there's an aura about the tour that I don't think any other race can capture, even
no,
the Giro and
and,
Volta.
and it's free. Spectators are free.
Yeah, that's the crazy part.
Like,
All the money comes
ah,
from just pure sponsorships and TV rights.
yeah, which is just like I was like, I knew it was free to go and stand on the edge of the stage, but I was like, surely to be at the start and finish line, or even at the Arc de Triomphe and stuff, and they're just like, nah, it's free. You
Mhm.
can come to the finish line. And you're like, huh,
Yeah, it's like, what?
cool.
How are we making money off this? But they do.
Yeah, 2023, and you can go to a sporting event like that for free is, yeah, that's special.
And then for the show, like 8 episodes, about 40 minutes an episode, what did you think of sort of that decision rather than doing real long hour episodes? Like some of these weren't even 40 minutes. Some of them were like
Yeah.
barely scraping 30, which was interesting.
Personally, coming from my experience, I thought that was brilliant. That was absolutely perfect. They nailed exactly what needed to be shown in the show and just moved on.
Yep.
There was no filler. There was no trying to make them get to the standard hour episodes that they're meant to be these days. It was, here's what we want to say. Here's our summary of it. There you go. Goodbye. I
Yeah.
loved it. It was awesome.
Each episode was exactly as long as it needed to be. Like if we only
Yeah,
needed 32 minutes to tell this story, that's all you got.
that's what we did.
If we needed
Yeah.
48, you got 48. So I thought that was
No,
a great choice.
yeah, that was it. It fit the it fit the premise of the show. Like if it was a long mountain stage that took 6 hours, it was a 42, 43, 45 minute show. If it was a 112-kilometer sprint race, 25, 35 minutes. Like
Yep.
it was a good cadence with what was happening in the tour at the time. So I think it worked well for that too.
And I did like that they also only featured 8 of the potential 22 teams as well. Like
Yeah.
they have left themselves a lot of material to come back for future seasons, which they've already confirmed is coming back for a second season, focusing on this year's coming tour.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like it didn't try and show everything. It didn't try and be like, okay, you need to know everything about the tour. Here's every episode telling you everything about every tour. And it's just like, okay, for this tour, we're showing you Jumbo Visma. They have Vingegaard and Roglic. They're a weird team because they have 2 leaders.
Yeah, which
Uh,
never works.
no, luckily Roglic crashed at the start, and so yeah. And then that was it. And they were like, we have 2 leaders. Oh look, in the second, I think it's the second or the third race, Roglic crashed. So we went, okay, we're putting all our eggs in Vingegaard's basket.
Mhm.
Oh, we've also got this mad sprinter that loves winning stages as well, by the way, and
Mhm.
he's causing friction in our team.
Yeah, I loved that too, where they didn't like sugarcoat anything. Like they went, yeah, there's clearly some tension here. Like all of these guys are at the top of their game, and as any athlete, they all want to win, but some guys have that domestique role, which I loved that they explained that really well as well.
I think they needed to. I think that's one of those things that unless you are a hardcore cyclist, you have no idea what a domestique is.
Yep. Yeah, you see this
And
team of 8 or 10 or whatever it is, and
yeah,
only ever 2 of them win. It's like what?
yeah. And I think it's a really important role. And I think it's really important that you know what it is, especially if they're going to dive into it, because it is a vital role for that the leader.
Yep. One thing I noticed too, being someone that watches the tour every year, the one thing about this sport that really annoys me is the team changes. Like they're not. It's not like soccer where it's this is Manchester United, this is Chelsea,
Mm.
and the sponsor changes. The team is named after the major sponsor, so like every year,
It's a different team.
it could be the same team, but they just have a totally different name, totally different kit. And you're like,
Yeah.
what? That
That's
frustrates me. But
yeah.
that's
That's what happens when you don't sell tickets. So
yeah, everything is relying on those sponsor numbers.
yeah.
And
But no.
you mentioned the cobblestone episode as well. The footage they got for that was absolutely mental. Like the onboard GoPro footage that
Yeah.
shows just
Just
how ridiculous and difficult those stages are. Like no, thank you.
Well, I don't know how often your listeners or yourself have ridden road bikes and stuff, but you ride a road bike and you pump the tires up to what they're at, and you go riding on your normal asphalt road,
Oh yeah, it's
and it
rough as
bounces
hell.
around like crazy. I couldn't imagine what it would be like on a cobblestone. Like it would just, yeah,
Yeah.
just
It's no
insane.
wonder like so many riders pull out the day after that stage or
Yeah, The fact they
mid-stage
go
one.
over cobblestones.
And I think
Ah,
there was a rider 1 or 2 years ago was he fell like the day before the cobbles, fractured his collarbone, and then rode the
ah.
cobblestone stage the next day. I was like, you are insane. I don't know how you're doing that.
Well, who was it? Roglic? Someone in the this documentary did it. They broke it on the cobbles and he finished the stage.
Yep. Yeah, it's like,
I was like,
no, not
pass.
a chance. As soon as I broke my collarbone, I'm like, I'm done. Not riding on those again. Not a chance.
Could break my collarbone on the normal road, and I'd be like, yeah, I'm done. I'm out. That's enough.
Yeah, especially on a road bike with the way it's
Yeah.
all positioned and seated.
Oh, you just got so much weight into your arms and shoulders. Like, oh, no.
And then like seeing how filthy they are at the end of the cobblestone stage too, like it's a totally different
It's
level of the sport.
it's like being a mountain biker on a road bike. It's crazy. They're covered head to toe in dirt and grime and blood and whatever else.
Yeah. And like speaking of the mountain biking, you mentioned that young rider that sort of transitioned across. Like I think they did a good job of explaining that too, where these guys don't necessarily all start as road racers. Like you have guys come
Yeah.
from mountain bike or what's it called, like the cross sport one where they do like part mountain bike, part
Ah, yeah, yeah.
road race stuff, and it's like yeah, to transition over, and that guy transitioning over actually paid off on the mountain stages because coming downhill, totally different,
Oh,
freakish athlete.
he's just completely different lines. You're watching him chase them, and he's taking a car racing line into some of those corners, whereas the other guys obviously they were still doing race line, but no, it's not quite the
Not to
same.
the
You could
extremes
see
that
him,
he was
yeah.
right on the
Oh,
edge every time.
that was I was watching that just going, geez, I know that he doesn't crash because I've watched the tour, but am I sure that he doesn't crash?
And that's when you know
Yeah.
like these documentaries have like nailed it too, where we know the outcomes. We know
Hmm.
who wins, we know the ups and downs, but to get you so invested that you're like, wait a second, does he like is he about to
Like,
crash?
I actually had to Google at about episode 4 or 5. I was like, Vingegaard wins this, right? I'm pretty sure he wins this one. Pogačar just won the last two, and then yeah, he does. And then I had to Google it because the documentary did such a good job of being like, Pogačar never gives up, and he always attacks, and he always gets you here, and he always does that. And I was like, does he get this? I can't remember if he gets this or not.
Yeah.
So it did really good.
And I love that they do a good job with like Pogacar's not featured like properly. He doesn't do any interviews or anything because apparently his team turned it down, but they still do a good job of giving you an insight into his character and like
Hmm.
showing how much of a freakish athlete and competitive guy he is to push so far.
Honestly, if your listeners or anyone don't know who he is and want to learn more, go and Google him because like his workouts and what he rides and does all that sort of stuff will blow your mind. Like it, just insane.
And yet to win the tour as an under 25 rider, winning both the white and yellow jerseys was, I think
Well, he
he
won the
was one
what?
of the first people to do that.
No, there's four.
Oh, okay.
There's Jan Ulrich. Jan Ulrich.
Because I don't think Lance did it. Lance was older when he won.
Yeah, well, it takes a while for drugs to get into your system. Uh,
Speaking of the drugs, were you
how's
shocked
the team manager?
what's his name? Jonathan Waters was so open about, yep, I did that shit.
Yep. Yeah, yeah. And he goes, that's the whole reason he's got a team. He's like, it got to the point where I couldn't do it anymore. And he's like, what was he saying? He was saying something when he was like, he won a stage or whatever. And he was like, that was when I was at my peak drug taking. And I was like, pardon? What?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so,
Yeah, because he was on that US postal team. So,
yep, he was using, is it erythropoietin or EPO? from 1996 to 2000 uh, as part of the Santa Clara and US Postal racing teams alongside Lance Armstrong. And yeah, he was so open about it. He doesn't try and hide the fact that, yes,
Yeah,
we did that shit. And now my whole team is outspoken and totally against it to try and change the sport
yeah,
and clean up the sport, which is, it's nice to see that sort of there has been that shift in mentality among some of the top people in the sport.
yeah. No,
Because
there is. It's good.
I think that Lance thing tarnished the sport pretty badly.
Yeah, yeah. Um, I was sort of a little surprised that they allowed. I mean, it wasn't a big thing, and it did it foreshadowed him a little bit, but that they allowed mention of Armstrong in it
Hmm.
because there's a bit of it's a taboo subject in cycling at the moment, or not at the moment, but you
Yeah,
just sort of,
since the whole
yeah,
revelations came out.
you just don't talk about it. It's like from 1997 to 2002 or whatever it was, just doesn't exist anymore.
Hmm.
Cycling didn't exist in that time period. So yeah,
Yeah, I guess the only sort of saving grace for that is like because this is obviously targeting like casual viewers.
yeah, everyone knows
Everyone
it. So
knows Lance Armstrong. Like it's a name that if they didn't mention, it would probably stand out more than let's just quickly
true.
mention it and move past it.
And they did it well in that they did it as a, well, who the hell is this guy? Why is he talking to me like he knows what he's talking about?
Yep.
And he's like, yeah, because at that time I was riding for US Postal with Lance and I was at my doping. You're like, ah, okay, maybe he does know what he's talking about.
And yet that sort of then all builds into the whole like personal mental battles with the sport as well. Like the guys at the top, they obviously want to win all the time, but then you have people like Wout van Aert who is this crazy sprinter, but also gets tasked with you need to look after Vindegaard. It's like, yeah, but
Yeah,
I also want to win, and we see those mental
he was my
struggles,
favorite.
and it's a sport built around teamwork, but also built around individual goals, which makes cycling sort of pretty unique, I think.
It, I fully agree. Yeah, it makes it very unique. I don't think there is a sport like that where you're on a team, but your goal is to get one person to win.
Yeah, I guess it's baseball is like a little bit similar, and cricket a little bit like when you're batting, you're kind of just got to focus on yourself, but you're also overall the big picture in the end of it is for the team to win.
See, I think that's the other way, in that if you do well, your team does well,
Yeah,
as opposed to in cycling, if your team does well, you'll do well. And that I think is the difference between it and other sports is that, like cricket, for a perfect example, if you have Steve Smith and Labuschagne both go out there and score hundreds, Australia's probably going to win.
hmm,
Doesn't really matter what the rest of the team does, we're probably going to win. Whereas in cycling, if Vindegaard does really well by himself, he's probably not going to win because the other teams will go and attack him and they'll
yeah, they'll
do it
just
as a team.
they'll burn you out like they did with Pogacar.
I was just about to say they'll do it like they did to Pogacar, and they'll just attack, and then they'll attack, and then they'll attack, and then they'll attack. Yeah, I think it flips it as opposed to other team sports, like even soccer. If the striker has a brilliant game, you're probably going to win. Whereas you don't, he doesn't get any accolades from it. He doesn't get, oh yes, let's just use an example. Messi won the game. Messi won the game, but PSG gets the points.
Yeah,
Whereas in cycling, like the was it episode 6 or whatever, where Wout van Aert pushes himself to breaking point to give Vingegaard that help up that hill.
hmm,
Vingegaard gets the points. He gets the plus 2 minutes on Pogacar. He gets all of that. Wout van Aert's almost dead.
yeah.
He's like he's almost killed
He's just
himself.
crawling up the mountain to just finish the stage.
And all the accolades go to Vingegaard, and obviously within the team and everything that goes, yeah, yeah, yes. But no one outside of the team knows that Walt Van Aert did all of that, and then he doesn't get the points. Jumbo Visma doesn't get the points. Vingegaard gets the minutes. Whereas in other sports, yeah, cool. Courtois makes 25 saves. Courtois had a really good game. But PSG, who's Courtois play for? Yeah,
Madrid.
PSG, Madrid.
I think he's at
Madrid
Madrid
gets the
now. I
points.
don't know. He's
I don't know. I can't remember anymore.
he left.
Um,
We
Madrid
don't
gets the
focus on him
points.
anymore.
Yeah, like it's just a different in that if in other sports, if one person does well, the team gets points.
Yep.
But in this one, if one person does, if the team does well, only one person gets points.
Yeah, I guess that's true with the overall standings. Like people remember tour winners as individuals, not
Yeah,
oh, US Postal won 6 tours in a row. Like no,
yeah.
Lance won 6 tours in a row.
Lance one, exactly. Yeah,
Yeah. And I loved that we didn't focus on like just the top teams as well. We got a lot of focus on FDJ and
mm,
AG2R as well. I think it did a good job of introducing those mid tier teams and how like on the razor's edge they all are. Of if we don't win these couple of stages that we have a chance in, we may not be around. And then it also focused
mm,
on FDJ. Like it encapsulated their whole story where they always have this great hope of we're going to have the next tour winner. Ideally, he'll be a French rider, but then they always seem to just fall a little bit short
mm.
because of the immense
Fourth.
pressure that's put on them.
Yeah, yeah. It did a really good job of capturing all that, and it did a really good job of the managers just really riding the riders and going, "Come on, like get there!" And like if they did something on, they were really riding the emotions and getting into it. Yeah, it was really really good.
Yeah, I think that's something this show gives us that you don't get on the live tour coverage. You get that inside the support vehicles view and
Mm.
that perspective. That's a perspective that I haven't sort of seen before, which is very cool to see.
Yeah, neither. I didn't. I mean, obviously, I knew there were support cars. I knew they had managers and that sort of stuff, but I didn't realize that they were so. I
Like
mean, I didn't really
constantly
think about
in
it because they.
communication,
Oh, yeah, yeah,
which is
it
very
was
cool.
good.
Um, Another sort of gripe I had with the show was sadly we didn't get any of the Aussie commentary team, which I guess makes sense since it was a French produced show. But the some of those voiceover dubs that they did, wow, were they cheesy and not good.
Yeah, they were terrible. Some of those, they were. Some of them were bad, but yeah,
Like they definitely didn't
yeah, some of them
like.
were bad.
I don't think they hired actors. I think they just hired regular people because
Yeah,
some of them felt like they were just reading off a script. There was no emotion in it, and it made the show feel less like premium, which I was disappointed by. Like there was one point they even got a team name wrong. Did you pick up on that?
oh, I missed that.
So one of the dubs they're supposed to say AG2R, and they said AGR2, and I heard it and I went, wait, that wasn't right. What? I rewound and
No, I
played it again. I
missed
was
that
like,
one.
oh, how did they? How
Oh,
did nobody
that's
like
good.
pull that up in editing and be like, oh, can we just re-record that because you stuffed up a
Yeah, hang
team
on,
name,
guys. Just let's go do that one again.
which a
Yeah.
team manager would not do. He would get the team name right.
Yes, considering he'd be the manager of the team, I would hope that he'd get his own team right. Yeah.
Yeah, so
But,
I don't know.
there's not a whole lot of gripes about it. There was one or two, but I think they didn't. I would have liked them to explain the final stage a little bit more and how they've
Do the
tried
laps.
the time trial. Yeah, or even how they've tried to. Um, they've actually tried to get rid of it previously, and now they've just given up for the last 12 years. Like they've had the time trial as the final one,
Oh
and
yeah,
they've
yep.
they've tried to do things thinking that it'll make it better, and have just settled on no, this is what makes it tour special. That you just drink champagne for the first half, and then you just let the sprinters go nuts in the second half. Like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. Whereas I think that's a cool thing of the tour, and that no other tour does. Um, I think they could have dived. I know that we were just saying earlier that the great thing was that they didn't dive into everything. Um, but I think that final episode could have done maybe just a quick.
Yeah, a little bit more
This is the history of the final
explanation of
stage.
the history of it. Yeah,
Yeah, especially if you're getting sports fans watching it that don't really know about cycling, because most sports fans would be like, "Well, why the hell would you not? It's a stage. Go pump like Pogacar. You've got 2 minutes to make up. Just go and like try and get it."
yeah. I guess no other team would let that happen. They would just be right on your ass as soon as you took off. But nope.
But that's what I mean. Like, explain that it's this. I know they said it's a gentleman's agreement. You don't do it, but maybe they could have just gone. In the past, it has been tried to be made a stage, and nobody wanted to do it, and then they tried to make it a time trial, and it was just terrible because people were watching the clock to try and get the guy doing the yellow jersey to win it, and
Hmm.
they've just given up now and just accepted it and embraced it, and it's become a really cool part, and that's all it could have been. 2 minutes, 3 minutes of that. What was the cyclist compare's name? Whoever that guy, I really liked him speaking. He was really good. He could have just explained it, and I've been like, okay, sweet, move on.
Yep. Um, I love like watching the tour each year. How they've tried like different formats for the race as well. Like they've moved where that final individual time trial is. They've put like team time trials in. It is cool that it's not just the exact same course, the exact same like. Okay, we've got a time trial, then we've got 6 sprints, then we've got a mountain, and then we've got this like. It's slightly different every year, and I miss the team time trial
Yeah, I missed the team time trial. That was fun.
because it,
Um,
it it was the one stage where it was like this is 100% a team sport.
yeah, and I think it worked well that they had an individual team trial, a time trial, and then they had a team one.
Yep,
Like, yeah, I'd love them to put it back
yep.
because I haven't seen one for a couple of years.
Yeah, it's been 3 or 4 years I think since they had it last.
Yeah,
So
I can't remember when they had it last. Yeah,
I hope they bring it back.
but yeah, and I like that they did touch on it a little bit. How it's not even the same stages.
Mhm.
Like, there's the same points. Like, there's a cobblestone stage in most years. You got to go over the
Alpe d'Huez.
Aldo, yeah, that one. You've got to go over that. Doesn't matter.
Yep.
Every tour goes over that. It might be the 20th stage, the 12th stage, the 15th stage. It might be somewhere around there, but you have to get over that.
But even like when they do have those key mountains, they don't always go up the exact same path. Like they'll take a different
No,
road up that mountain each time,
yeah,
which is cool.
yeah. I think with that amount, it doesn't matter which way you go up. It's going to suck regardless.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, and like sometimes they'll come up from one side, go down the other side, and then the next year they'll go the other way. And
yeah.
it's cool that they do change it up a bit.
And it doesn't start. It's not all in France. It starts in bloody Denmark sometimes, and ducks into
London,
yeah,
London was
does
weird.
crazy things. Yeah, I didn't think I liked that. I think that was too. I
Too
think that was
far.
too out there.
Yeah.
Yeah, leave it in mainland Europe. It's fine.
And like, I like when it's an adjoining country because it makes sense that, oh yeah,
Yeah,
we could physically ride this entire course, even though
yeah,
there are stages where they're like, we took a day off and we travelled down here.
yeah, yeah.
Uh,
But that's
and then to close to, I love that they captured like the emotion of the tour as well, particularly on that final time trial where Vindegaard intentionally slowed down to let Wout finally get his stage win.
yeah.
I think that was a great sort of display of the team camaraderie aspect.
Especially after he just murdered himself getting up that hill.
Mhm.
So like that was yeah, that really did show that yeah, okay, I'm the one that's going to win, but I'm going to give this to my mate because of what he's done and show you that it is a team sport. And without it, I wouldn't have been able to get to where I am.
Yep. Yeah, because they
And I have the minutes on Pogacar to do this. So yeah,
yeah, and they didn't mention in the show, but like yeah, each stage has a little like cash bonus that they get given, whether it's like a team agreement that we then split that between the team, or if like the individual keeps it is a different story. But for Vindegaard to intentionally slow down and be like, okay, I don't want this, you can have it because of what you
Yeah.
did, is like he's literally taking money out of his own pocket to give to his teammate.
Yeah. That was a really good time trial from Vingegaard because he's not a noted time trialist.
And yeah, and then he
For him
was
to,
at the verge of winning it, and he was
yeah,
like, "Ah, I don't need to go this fast. I'm just gonna slow right down."
I thought he'd, I mean, I knew that he didn't, but when he come around that corner and
Oh,
almost clipped that wall and had a little skid, I was like, oh, yeah, it
that's another thing.
it
These
was
guys are
fun.
crazy bike handlers too. Like riding those bikes in the wet across painted lines. It's yeah.
Oh, that first time trial, holy Jesus, that would have been scary.
Mhm. Yeah,
That would have been
every corner
scary.
you're like, I'm gonna stack it.
Oh, jeez. But I think you touched on it just there, and I think that's what works. That's what worked on this one as opposed at this one and the F1. It wasn't money driven. Like the F1, obviously, yes, it was, but at the same time, it really wasn't. Like it, whereas, and this one, I don't think they touched on prize money once. I
Nope.
don't think they told us at all how it did. Whereas the tennis one was, it's $2 million to win this event, and the golf one, well, yeah, we'll leave that one alone.
His ridiculous amounts of money to come fifth. Like,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, I don't want to hijack this one and rant about that one again. So,
Yep.
um, yeah, but I think they did really well in that it was this is a sport about the racing. It's about the race. It's about the team. It's about getting to the for 70% of the tour. It's about just making it to the end.
Yeah.
Like it's not even about winning or well, obviously it's always about winning and losing, but it's just about getting to the end. If you're one of the team members, if you're the fifth team member or the sixth team member, your whole job is just to sit in the peloton and protect your leader, and then just make it to the end. So you can do that every stage.
Mhm. Collect the drink
And
bottles, collect the
even
food, sit in the
even
wind.
just making it
Like,
21 stages of 120 kilometers a stage, up hills over 24 days. You get 3 rest days.
yep. Yeah, 3 weeks
Oh,
with a rest day in
that's
between each week.
just, mate, I ride 20 minutes a day, and like if I do it a week in a row, I'm like, oh my God, my body
My
hurts.
legs hurt. And even
Like,
like
yeah.
their rest days, but
Oh, they still,
they don't take the day off. They go and
no,
they go and keep
they do
riding
a
because
90-kilometer ride.
I've seen them
Yeah.
say like, yeah, if you actually take a full rest day, you won't be able to go the next day. Your body will
Well,
seize up and be like, nope.
what got me so much, and I didn't realize it, how much time they spend on their bike outside of riding. Like if they're going from their bus to the start line, they ride the bike.
Hmm.
Why wouldn't you just walk? Like you're going to be on it for the next 6 hours. Just
Yeah, that's why they got
walk.
the padded shorts.
Oh, jeez. And they go and get on the bike before
The,
with the ice
the
vest on to
stationary
keep
bike,
cool. And
like
Jesus, they're just on a bike all the time. Surprising their sleep, their legs aren't just rolling around. And,
yeah. But those the masseuse and the physios, they definitely earn their money. Those blokes.
100%. Yeah.
Alrighty, that's Tour de France Unchained. In terms of rating, what would you give this series out of 5?
I give it a 4.
Yep, yeah, I gave it 4. Um,
Yeah.
Left themselves plenty of room to sort of expand and improve in season 2.
Yeah.
Hopefully, ideally, we spend a bit more money on voice acting.
It was honestly out of the 5 that we've got so far of these, it was my second favorite. So yeah, it's done really good.
Yeah, and like we
Five,
said,
4.
well, we've got Drive to Survive was the sort of the originator, Breaking Point, Full Swing, and now this. They're the 4
Yeah,
Netflix ones.
4. Yeah.
And we've had
Oh, and then yeah, sorry, we did the Ashes one too.
yeah,
Yeah.
we've had the test on Amazon. Um, the what's the other one that they've done like Arsenal and
Yeah, the yeah,
Make or
whatever it is.
Break?
Yeah,
Is that it?
that sounds like one of them, but yeah,
Actually, I think that might be the
I can't remember.
surfing one on Apple.
I think that's a different one, yeah.
And then there's the one that they change do a different sport and a different team each year on Amazon as well. But
Yeah.
of the four Netflix ones, yeah, this is probably my second favorite. And hopefully,
Yeah, I
quickly jumping up there after a couple more seasons where they can sort of get into it, and the teams now can sort of
yeah,
see, okay, it's not a huge like burden and impact on our racing.
yeah, I think I could see it overtaking Formula One in my eyes anyway. Um, that might not be for everybody, but I could definitely see it becoming something that I do look forward to and and watch. Yeah,
Yep. Yeah, I'm 100% keen for season 2. So, but in the meantime,
hopefully
we get to watch a full Tour de France over July.
ho- hopefully it's a good one so that we can get a good Unchained.
Yeah, we need lots of sort of competitive racing and a few controversial
Yeah,
moments,
if Pogacar just comes out and murders the field, it won't be quite as exciting.
especially if he's not involved in season 2. I hope he is,
Yeah,
because he was
I
pretty
hope he is
prominent
too.
in season 1 without getting a starring role. So,
Yeah,
be nice.
I hope they can get him in there and talk to him.
Alrighty. Thank you everyone for listening to the commentary booth. If you enjoyed the show, please remember to rate, review, and subscribe on podcast services and on YouTube. You can follow Ben on Instagram at BJD517, and you can follow me on social media at JamieUpsMedia and at Pario Magazine. Thanks for jumping on, Ben, and we'll chat to you next time there's a crazy sports documentary, most likely.
Most probably. Cheers. Thanks for having me.
The Commentary Booth is a fan-funded production of Jamie Apps Media. You can support the podcast alongside our magazine, Pario Magazine, on Patreon at patreon.com/Jamie Apps Media. The following people supported at the publisher level or higher, and you cannot fathom how incredibly appreciative we are for their support.